Hi everybody, Automaton here. In this video I will discuss the most critical mistake I see everybody do in the low elo range that, in my opinion, stems from a big misunderstanding. While it's true that I can't be inside people's brain to hear their thoughts, by looking at the gameplay it can be easily, but not surely, inferred what thought processes newbies usually go through, and I will try to correct that misunderstanding. But first, a little story. It was the late 2008 and 16-year-old me was at my girlfriend's house for the first time. We needed to pass some time before dinner was ready, so we went to her room and I explored it a little. And then I saw it. Like a pond of water in the desert, like a flower blooming in the snow, like a diamond in a junkyard, there it sat, dwarfing all other objects in the room. A copy of Age of Mythology, The Titans. I was beyond amazed. "You like this game? I love it," I said, to which she replied, "Yes, it's great, let's play a game." While the game booted up, I could already see us married. But then, everything broke up. I was daydreaming, of course, because she was a casual player. At the age of 6, I didn't know English, but that didn't stop me from joining MSN Live servers to play Age of Empires 1 online. There I was, 6-year-old, could barely communicate, but still joined every game I could. I didn't get to be a casual player for long though, because a kind stranger befriended me and taught me all I needed to know to survive in that hellscape. "You will?" In no time, I was playing Deathmatch Chosen Wars, clicking like crazy and having the time of my life. It was a different kind of fun though. Competitive fun and casual fun are very different from one another. So, when my girlfriend started playing that day, I couldn't relate to her one bit. I watched painfully when she built a very distant storehouse for her wood, and almost cried when she went to collect chickens without a granary. If we set aside my pain, that was alright though. The easy AI used to age up, build 4 units, and freeze up until the end of times. There was no need to optimize anything. The fun was in discovering things, building army, exploring the map, and then finally crushing Jason and his hoplite friends. A single player kind of fun I could never relate to, because of my previous baptism of fire, as I was thrown as a kid with the lions and had to learn how to survive from the very beginning. In the background you can see my reaction to my girlfriend playing that game. But enough with stories. What does this teach us? In my opinion, that newbies are enamored with concepts. Aging up, building armies, training myth units, raiding. For newbies, these are not means to an end, but the end itself. The newbie builds an army fundamentally because he wants to have an army. He goes heroic because he really wants to go heroic to unlock that sick myth unit and those new military units. He goes mythic because he wants to cast that destructive god power or to build a titan. He goes raiding because he really likes that playstyle and wants to kill some villagers. And that's okay. But that isn't gonna let you survive in the harsh world of multiplayer. To become a decent RTS player, the newbie must, once and for all, completely change the way he looks at the game. And believe me, there is no going back. RTS games are often considered fighting games because the end goal is the destruction of your enemy. But for the sake of strong play, they cannot and should not be summed up as a battle, but rather as a race. And I'm not talking about your APM as a player, aka actions per minute. You are not the runner. You are not the one who should be in a hurry. Your civilization is. And this race is summed up by this graph here, the collected resources graph. But let me explain better. In Supremacy, you start in the Archaic Age with only 4 villagers, 1 town center, no army and no technology. The goal is to kill your opponent, but it's not easy to do so because the town center itself is a good defensive bastion. And you also start with 4 towers. So, in order to kill the enemy, you need to overcome both these defenses and the enemy army defending them. This is no small feat, and usually, assuming opponents have the same skill, will only be possible when there is a much stronger army on one side. Army strength is impacted mainly by 2 things: the number of soldiers and tech level, and both of these things cost resources. With resources, you can train new units and research technologies, which will both make your army stronger. This can be better visualized as a pyramid, with resources as the foundation. Without resources, you will have nothing. This is mainly the reason why build orders exist in the first place. The first minutes are so similar between games that with so little variables, players realized there is little variation in what you should do at the start of the game. In the first minutes, all you do is build villagers to have some resources to start your empire. You will find no build order spamming army before 4 minutes, because you can't build your pyramid without foundations. Trying to do so will inevitably make it crumble. So, let's go back to our race simile. The 2 players start at 0 collected resources and begin collecting them. At the finish line of the resources race is the much desired goal, having enough army advantage to be able to kill the opponent. But the finish line doesn't exist yet. Its distance is not readily known and set in stone, but is proportionate to the resource advantage you have on the enemy. The more the resource advantage widens, the more the probability of the game ending soon increases. For example, if I'm able to kill all the hunters of the enemy early, let's say at minute 7, he will have a big villager disadvantage. That translates into economic disadvantage. In the race, his city will slow down a lot. The game will then probably end in late classic or early heroic age, because the extreme distance between the 2 players in the economic race will make the finish line be very close to the start. To make the opposite example, if both players boom and kill no villager and army fights prove equal, they will be progressing at the same speed, and find that the finish line is moving farther and will take longer to reach. If you see any pro player streaming, you will see that after a game, especially if he has lost and wants to understand what happened, he will look at the total resources collected graph the most. Other very useful graphs are civilian count, to better understand supposed resource advantage, and army count, to better understand fights. It may not be clear, but analyzing good fights and bad fights is done with the same resource mindset. When they look at the graph, they're analyzing resources wasted, or, to be more precise, the resource advantage between them and the enemy that the fight resulted in. So, how do we look at the graphs? The settlement graph shows your acceleration. The more you have, the more villages you'll produce, the faster you will be going. The civilian count graph accounts for the speed of the racers. It is influenced by the settlements, docks, and heroic age markets you have. Killing enemy civilians with successful raids will lower his speed, but not his acceleration. The army count graph, if properly analyzed and properly integrated with the civilian count, shows how much time your racer spends idle, because the resources spent to rebuild armies are not spent in technologies and improvements. So, in what ways can you get resource advantage over the enemy? First way, by building town centers. Building a second town center will double your villager production. The effect on the race will be that your acceleration will be double your opponent's. Second way, raiding. Depending on the outcome, raiding can impact your opponent differently. Killing villagers will decrease your enemy acceleration. This will result in you getting more in front as time passes. Idling enemy villagers will temporarily decrease the opponent's speed, depending on what percentage of the enemy total villagers you're idling and for how long. It's kinda like giving your opponent the Caladria Specify effect, but it expires almost immediately. Will get you in front of your enemy, but not by much. Killing single soldiers will very briefly stun the enemy, giving you the chance to get the upper hand. Third way, a good army fight will have a huge impact on your enemy, but it will not change his speed or his acceleration. You can imagine it as an Uranus shockwave. If the enemy has doubled your villagers, meaning is much faster than you, this will not have a huge impact. Here you can see the enemy destroying my army with flaming weapons. It didn't matter much, though, because I had double his economy. Fourth way, unique god mechanics like Thor's Dwarven Armory and Freyr's Stack affect the race in a more complicated and niche way. I will not discuss it further in what should be a general explanation. The easiest way for a new player to win might seem raiding, but in my opinion, this is actually true only on the short term. Yes, if you are on low elo, chances are that the enemy will get raided badly and you might win some games, but you will learn nothing from it. Artful raiding requires evaluating correctly how many troops to build, and being able to kill the villagers of a player who knows how to defend his economy. Going for some quick villager kills against a low elo player is as easy, fun and effective as is usual to the raider's personal growth. You might win some games, but you will not grow to be a stronger player. On top of that, managing raids and economy at the same time is usually more micro-intensive and difficult to begin with. A good example will be this 1400 player I found on a ranked team game. It works nicely as example because it was a mirror match, in this case Gaia versus Gaia. Here he started raiding me with Turmas from the start. I went 2 town centers and tried to defend his raiding by minimizing the damage he did to my economy. In the end, he didn't manage to kill any of my villagers, got all his Turma to die under tower fire, and ultimately lost the game. But this didn't stop him from trash talking and saying I was weak and should have lost. This behavior really got me believing that by just being allowed to enter my city and harass my villagers, he thought he was in full control of the game and that he was winning it, while in reality he had been digging his own grave all along, with his slow progression speed and inability to slow me down.
I'm in charge.
Do you feel in charge?
I made your villagers run away.
This gives you power over me?
By going 2 town centers, I doubled my villager production, as you can see in the graph. This means that my racer started accelerating at double the speed of my enemy. This is not as obvious as it might seem, as there are many intelligent people online not grasping why would you take a second town center early to begin with. To be on par with my progression, mind you, not winning, just on par, his raiding party should have at least killed 1 villager every 30 seconds, because my extra town center was producing 1 extra villager every 25. Instead, he only idled some of my villagers and kept losing Turmas. 1 Turma is worth 95 resources, and 1 Atlantean citizen collects 1.4 resources per second on average. So, to repay a single Turma death, you should idle 1 citizen for 67.8 seconds, or 3 citizens for 22.6 seconds, or 9 citizens for 7.5 seconds. In a one town center versus one town center scenario, this idle time makes sure you and your enemy stay on par in the race, but in a true town center scenario, you can't settle for idling villagers. You need to do real damage. His obsession with raiding at all costs and his incapacity to see the bigger picture made him produce and lose 20 turmas, amounting to 1900 resources. All resources he didn't invest in progressing the race, while making me lose only 700 resources of villager idle time. This was a bad raid even in the scenario where we both had the same number of town centers. In this scenario, once he produced military and I built a second town center, the correct play was to mass army and hit me with a good timing. Having the army advantage by taking advantage of the resources I invested in other things, like my second town center, farms, and my increased villager production. If he went full send, he could have done big damage to even things out between us, and maybe even surpass me, but he didn't. In any case, as bad as his strategy plan was, at least he knew that when you produce army, you're supposed to use it. Lower on the ladder, newbies build early army just to feel safe. This is as common as it is damaging, because having idle army is as bad as having idle villagers. If you do this, you've given up your chance of accelerating on the race, and also your chance to hinder your opponent's progression. Your opponent will invest in resource gathering, and then, when he has a clear economic advantage, he will build a game-ending army to crush you. With your idle army, you will be safe for some time, but give up any chance of winning the game against any competent player. I think a new player should practice true town center booming way more than raiding. Firstly, because booming and defending without investing resources in defense are skills that are critical at every elo and can be practiced well regardless of enemy strength. Secondly, because it will introduce the player faster to the late game mechanics, what many will call deathmatch skills, which are the skills needed to kill an enemy in the same resource plenty stage of the game as you, which is a situation that usually arises between minute 20 and minute 30 in Age of Mythology retold. Thirdly, the player will learn to what extent defending without military units is possible and will stop needing an army early just to feel safe. Build orders will make you feel stronger, but build orders will leave you with nothing concrete in your hands. If you are a low elo player following one, you are strong in the first 4 minutes, as long as you use it, but after minute 4 you're on your own, back to playing like a low elo again. In that regard, the build order is nothing else than an empty promise to make you better, fueled by some immediate results, but rather short-lived. This is because transitioning from a lower elo to mid-high elo doesn't need extremely efficient build orders, it just needs understanding the game mechanics and the strategy and using them to get an advantage over your opponent. In this other team game, I faced a Thor on Anatolia. He built his armory and started making his Thor shenanigans. He built the right army composition and microed perfectly his army all the game. He got a good flaming weapons fight and I had to rebuild my army. Still, he was utterly crushed with no hopes of winning the game. It must have been a really frustrating experience for him, since he made no mistakes, and I wonder if he understood why he lost. The reason for his loss is that he didn't build a dock. So, while I was fishing like a madman, he was left behind economically and fought an uphill battle he couldn't win in any way. Build orders are useful, But if you're a newbie, it's better to use them as a lax blueprint of what you can and should do in Archaic Age. You shouldn't get obsessed over them. If you send a villager to wood instead of gold, or make any mistake, it's not that decisive. Learn to be dynamic with your choices. Build orders are really important only at the top elos, when people of the exact same skill battle each other and every little advantage matters. It does not make them stronger at playing the game, it just gives them a tiny advantage. In our race simile, the two top players of the same level can be assumed to proceed down the resource path at similar speed. The top player that uses a perfect build order will have a little but extremely important head start over the one who doesn't use one though, and the snowballing nature of the game can amplify that head start with time. Training one soldier faster for that decisive battle or raid can make a big difference in top level games. What's more important for a newbie is understanding game in resource values and trying to learn to correctly guess where you both are on the racetrack and to decide your strategy using that information. If you can guess who has the advantage and what the enemy is doing, you can surely find a way to exploit it. Take the God Power Restoration for example. There are two ways to look at it, the casual way and the expert way. A casual will describe restoration as a power that heals your army and helps you win fights. A pro player will describe it as a power that, in a fight setting, will produce resources and pushing potential for you. Yes, you heard me well. Restoration produces resources. In a hoplite fight 20 versus 15, if the enemy is distracted or dumb enough to leave them engaging, you usually win with 16 hoplites left, but 10 of them are badly damaged. So we better say you win with 10 hoplites worth of HP in them. If you cast Restoration, you could win it with all 20 hoplites alive. So in that setting, Restoration has produced the hoplite cost multiplied by 10, which is 900 resources, because it's 90 multiplied by 10. Using it in the correct moment can produce more resources than using it in the worst moment. Therefore, good power casting translates into maximizing your resource advantage. By this point of view, Restoration is not that different from Rain or Prosperity. Same can be said with Tornado or Implosion or any god power really. Killing soldiers means the opponent must pay to rebuild them. So, in a way, Implosion is robbing those hard-earned resources from their bank and idling the opponent in the race for some time. Sorry opponent, you're not going Mythical Age any soon, because you will need to rebuild your army to defend yourself, unless you wanna die now. A simple exercise for a newbie would be to stop hating water maps and start playing them. Water maps get often shunned by newer players because that one build order they learned won't work on it, and learning additional build orders can be very tiring mentally. But you don't really need a build order, not really in this stage of learning the game. You need to understand all of the game mechanics first, as they are far more important than the build order. In my opinion, the perfect map to train yourself is Mirage. You have your personal sea, so you can fish with no added difficulty with the water fighting. You have sea economy, so you can't obsessively stick to the land build order you learned, because it will be underperforming in a fishing map. And the games will be faster because of the water economy, meaning you can train yourself more in the same time frame. It's really the perfect map to set aside the build orders and practice the real RTS skills and get used to the game, and I mean really used, in a fundamental, instinctive way. Thank you for reaching this far. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something in the way. Thanks to you, I am officially YouTube partner and unlocked paid subscriptions. This is the first direct way of supporting me available and will grant many benefits, like early video access. Check it out. Also, the Discord is getting big. We are 70 right now, and the place feels very lively. We already played some team games, so come say hi. You can also subscribe to Twitch, or subscribe to the channel. I see you all lurking. Don't make me sad. This is all for today. Take care, and I will see you around.